Welcome to Sports Megaprojects. Today we're heading to Nashville, where the Tennessee Titans are walking away from one of the NFL's most ordinary stadiums and building one of the most expensive in American history. The new Nissan Stadium is rising right next door to the old one, and when it opens, it will close out one of the largest, most contentious financing fights in pro sports. This is the full story. Let's get started. The Tennessee Titans arrived in Nashville in 1997, relocating from Houston, and by 1999 they had a brand new home on the east bank of the Cumberland River. It opened under the name Adelphia Coliseum, was later called the Coliseum, and then LP Field, before becoming Nissan Stadium in 2015 under a naming rights deal with the Japanese automaker. For more than 2 decades it did its job, a 69,000-seat open-air bowl of concrete and steel, hosting Titans football, CMA Fest, and the occasional concert. But the lease signed back in 1996 carried a clause that would eventually become the whole story. The city of Nashville was legally obligated to keep the stadium first class all the way through 2039, and as the building aged, that obligation turned into a financial trap. By 2022, with renovation costs spiraling, the Titans and Metro Nashville commissioned an independent study from Venue Solutions Group. The findings were stark. Simply maintaining and upgrading the existing stadium through the remainder of the lease would cost the city somewhere between $1.75 and $1.95 billion in public money, with nothing new to show for it at the end. Rebuilding from scratch had already been considered and rejected once. Now the math pointed the other way. A new stadium, fully replacing the old one, started to look like the cheaper option. That set up the deal that would define the project. In October 2022, then Mayor John Cooper and the Titans announced an agreement, a new enclosed stadium that would void the old lease and its open-ended liabilities, in exchange for one of the largest public contributions ever committed to an NFL venue. The total cost was set at $2.1 billion. Of that, $840 million was to come from the Titans and the NFL, $500 million from the state of Tennessee, and $760 million from revenue bonds issued by the Metro Sports Authority. Combined, the public commitment came to $1.26 billion, the largest taxpayer contribution to a stadium project in American sports history. It was, depending on who you asked, either a shrewd long-term investment that spared Nashville a multi-billion-dollar maintenance bill, or a staggering transfer of public money to a private franchise. Both readings circulated loudly through Metro Council chambers before the deal was finally approved. The new stadium is being built directly east of the current one, on land that has spent decades as surface parking. The site lets the Titans keep playing in the old stadium through the entire construction process, with no displacement, no temporary ground, no years spent as tenants somewhere else. When the new building is finished, the old Nissan Stadium will be demolished, and more than 66 acres of riverfront land will revert to city control, earmarked for a new mixed-income neighborhood, parks, and greenways along the Cumberland. The design itself, from Manica Architecture, the firm behind Allegiant Stadium, NRG Stadium, and Wembley, breaks sharply from what Nashville has had for the past 26 years. Where the old stadium was an open bowl exposed to the elements, the new one will be fully enclosed, with a permanent, non-retractable roof sheathed largely in translucent ETFE material, letting natural light flood the bowl while shielding fans and turf from Tennessee's heat, humidity, and storms year-round. Capacity is set at roughly 60,000, nearly 10,000 fewer than the current stadium, making it, somewhat surprisingly, the smallest stadium in the NFL by seating. But smaller, here, is deliberate. The design prioritizes sightlines, intimacy, and exterior terraces and porches that open onto panoramic views of the city skyline rather than raw capacity. The team has described the goal as building something with character, just like Nashville, with sustainable materials and finishes designed to feel distinct from the generic domed stadiums it will inevitably be compared to. The naming stayed in the family. In 2023, Nissan extended its sponsorship into a 20-year agreement, meaning the new building inherits the same name the current stadium has carried since 2015, even as the working title Tennessee Stadium briefly floated through early planning documents. Construction broke ground in March 2024, led by a four-company consortium calling itself the Tennessee Builders Alliance, New York-based Turner Construction, Indianapolis-based AECOM Hunt, and two Tennessee firms, Polk and Associates and ICF Builders and Consultants, a deliberate echo of the local and national partnership model other major stadium projects have leaned on. The build has not been without friction. Work was briefly halted in 2024 after a noose was discovered on site, triggering a police investigation, but the project has otherwise moved at pace. By late 2025, crews had placed more than 12,400 steel beams, totaling 18,000 tons, and poured roughly 98,000 cubic yards of concrete, and the building topped out that November. The project has also leaned on local labor commitments. Nearly a fifth of construction hours have gone to residents of Nashville's high-poverty promise zones, and more than $110 million has been paid out to disadvantaged business enterprises. By March 2026, the stadium had reached 75% completion, with daily crews of around 2,000 workers and the ETFE roofing cables being laid into place as the building moved toward full enclosure. The Titans have committed to covering any cost overruns themselves, and current ticket and PSL holders have been moving through a phased process at a dedicated facility called TITANS House, where they're guided through seating options for the new building. The numbers attached to the project's long-term impact are enormous on paper. City projections estimate more than $20 billion in direct spending impact over the stadium's first 30 years, with a total economic impact above $33 billion and thousands of ongoing jobs supported. Whether those projections hold up the way they're modeled is, as with most stadium economics, a question that won't be answered until long after the ribbon is cut. The new Nissan Stadium is scheduled to open in February 2027, with concerts and other events ahead of the Titans' first regular season game there that fall. It will go on to host Super Bowl LXIV in 2030, the first Super Bowl ever played in Nashville. When the doors finally open, it will mark the end of nearly 3 decades in the original building, and the start of a deal that, for better or worse, will be cited in every future stadium negotiation across the league. And that's the complete story of Nashville's new Nissan Stadium, $2.1 billion, the largest public stadium subsidy in US history, breaking ground in March 2024, and targeting a February 2027 opening with a Super Bowl already booked for 2030. One of the most expensive and most debated stadium projects in American sports. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching. See you next week.